Okay, welcome back to my channel. My name is Richard Bradford, and today I'm going to teach you how to create or how to paint a fall scene, a beautiful fall scene using acrylic paints and using the paint kit that hopefully you purchased from me. If not, you can use really any acrylic paints to do this. We're going to be using lots of different colors today. I'm not going to go through all the colors that we're going to use, but as I use them, I'll let you know what colors they are. And your colors may not be exactly the same. I used to get frustrated when I would watch tutorial videos because the artist would say, I'm using phthalo green or phthalo blue or permanent black or Mars black or titanium white, or burnt sienna, and I would think, I don't have, I have brown, does that work? I have black, does that work? Because that doesn't say Mars black, but the reality is you use what colors that you think work best for you. There's lots of different names for lots of different colors, there's lots of different shades, and you don't have to do it exactly how I do it. You do it how you want to do it. But I will tell you the colors I'm going to use. I do have a palette here. However, one of the problems I'm going to run into today is I'm going to be using more colors in this particular painting than I have room for in my palette. I'll be using more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 colors. I'll probably be using more along the lines of 10 colors to do this particular painting. So follow along where you want to or how you want to. You can speed through the video or you can watch the whole thing and just follow along. It's up to you. There's lots of different ways to paint. There is no one right way. When I was learning how to paint, I'd see these different tutorials that would teach me how to get to the same point through all these different routes. So one of the things I've learned as a painter is there's lots of different ways to paint a picture. So you do what works best for you. I'll show you what I do, but you do what works best for you. Another thing I'm going to use today that may be a little different than what you have seen or what you've used in the past is this is a wood chip brush. It's got some rough bristles on it, and I'm going to be using that to create some the effects of leaves. I like this to be as kind of messed up and bristly and just as kind of messed up, really kind of as I can. The more messed up the better, and you'll see why. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is when I'm painting a picture like this is I like to do the sky. I like to have the sky done so that I can build upon that. And one of the great things about acrylic paints is they dry fast. So it shouldn't take us too long, or once we create that sky effect, it shouldn't take too long to be able to add upon that. For my sky effect, I'm going to use, this is kind of a lighter blue color. It's called a lake blue. And I'm going to use some titanium white. I'm also going to, excuse me, I'm going to use some black, some permanent black, but if this was another kit, it would be a Mars black. Doesn't matter what black, just use black. And then I'm going to also use some phthalo blue. Okay, all right. Now I like to just use a little bit of paint on my paint palette because I can always add more. I can't take that paint and put it back into the tube, but I can always take that tube and put more down on my palette. So, and I'm gonna be turning my canvas around as I paint because it's easier for me if I do that rather than just have it straight up and down. But you do how it works for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint my sky up here. And I'm going to test some colors a little bit. I'm going to take some lake blue, some white. This is kind of a during the daytime picture. I'm going to get a little bit of black in there. So what I'm trying to do is kind of mix some colors around to get kind of a good natural sky color. And that looks kind of good. So I'm going to bring this over here. I'm going to paint it there. I'm going to add a little bit more white to it. It's a little too dark for me. There we go. A little bit of white there, and I'm going to kind of even more white. Some big blue. Just a tiny bit of black, just the slightest hint of black. We don't want much black in here. Again, more of the permanent, or permanent white, or titanium white. I'm sorry, not permanent white, titanium white, to kind of lighten it up a little bit. And I can already tell that I'm going to have to use or add more white to my palette, but that is okay. All right. And I like to add, keep my brush wet, because I want to make sure now I'm just adding a lot of white. I want to make sure I can spread, get as much coverage as I can with my paint. So I'm using a lot of water in there. You don't want to use too much water though, because you use too much water, what happens is it doesn't stick. You kind of lose the coverage on there. All right, so that's kind of my sky color. All righty, I like that. I'm good with that. Okay, there's my sky. All right, and again, I used some lake blue or lighter blue. I didn't use any of my phthalo blue yet. I'm going to use that actually later for some different effects. But I did use a tiny bit of my Mars black. I'm going to need some more titanium white, so I'm going to add more titanium white to my tray here. All right. Now for me, I like to add clouds. I just love clouds. So there's different ways to do clouds. One of the ways that I like to do clouds is I like to take just any kind of brush, and then I just dab a little bit of white, maybe a tad bit of black in there, like gray clouds. And then I don't want a whole lot of paint on my brush. I don't want it really, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of tap it and kind of rub that cloud in there. I'm going to add a little bit more white to this so it sticks out. There we go. This works really well if your palette is dry. Mine's not quite as dry as I'd like it to be, but that's okay. And we're going to kind of give some hints of some clouds here and there. I like adding clouds in these types of situations because it breaks up the blue, makes it a little bit more realistic. Now I'm going to just kind of use my white here. And now it's a nice fall scene. It would be nice to have some clouds in the background. And again, you see I don't have a whole lot of paint, and I'm not pressing down hard at all on my brush. Okay, not pressing down hard at all. Just gonna kind of rub that around. Okay, so I don't know if that shows up very well, but we've got some little bit of clouds, just a hint of clouds there. I might add to it a little bit more as my paint dries. My sky dries there. And I'm gonna, I'm gonna brighten up these clouds just a titch so they show up a little bit better. That's maybe down here. Add a little hint of a cloud there, and see how I'm just kind of working my paintbrush around this so that I get fluffier clouds. Okay, now, I don't know if you can see or not, but I have some clouds in there. And I'm gonna be covering up a lot of this area here, so I'm not so concerned if it's really blended super well or how it works down this area here, because most of this area is gonna be covered by trees. So I'm not really too concerned about, you know, making sure it's perfectly blends from kind of a darker blue up high in the sky to kind of a lighter blue as we move down. I'm not really concerned so much about that. Okay, so now I'm gonna clean my brush off here. This is where I'm going to be using the fan brush. I'm going to be using my 1/2-inch brush here as well as my chip brush, my wood chip brush. I'm going to start adding some trees. Now, I'm going to work my way from what I say back to kind of front. I'm going to do my trees in the distance first. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some trees in there, and I want those trees, things farther away, they're gonna be less vibrant, they're gonna be less detailed. So I'm gonna kind of create some fuzzy trees a little bit in the background there. This is my first time using this wood chip brush, so this will be kind of a little bit of practice for me. But I'm gonna use some yellow ochre. And I'm going to be using, here's where I'm starting to get into my warm colors. The skies, if you're familiar with warm, cool colors, my sky is cool colors. Now I'm going to be using some warm colors. I've got crimson, I've got yellow ochre. I'm going to use some burnt sienna as well. Okay. And I might also, well, we'll see. I might use some scarlet. We'll see here. We're gonna kind of test this out first. So what I'm gonna do, again, we're just kind of doing the ones in the background a little bit. So I'm gonna get a little bit of yellow ochre on my brush here, a little bit, and tapping around. Maybe a little bit of white there to kind of brighten it up a little bit. There we go. Now what I'm doing is I'm just gonna kind of tap some trees in the distance here. We gotta get a little bit more paint on my brush, get that brush a little bit wetter. Oh, it might be a little bit too wet, but we're gonna, it's gonna be a little ochre. And the problem with these, if I get my brush too wet, I'm gonna dry it off just a little bit. It won't give me the effect I want. It'll kind of bleed everything, not bleed everything, but it'll just kind of smush everything together, and I don't want that. Okay. So I'm doing some trees in the background. My brush is still a little bit too wet. I'm gonna add a little bit of, oh, there we go, my crimson in there. And just a little bit of my burnt sienna. Okay, oh, I'm a little bit nervous because I don't want my brush to be too wet as I add these trees in there. Long distance, let me do a little bit more. So I'm just giving kind of the impression that there's trees here in the background. Again, these are just my background trees. Let's bring some over here. These are the trees that are in the background, and they're just kind of not real detailed, and you can kind of see them there just a little bit in the background. Okay, I can bring it down here a little bit. A little bit darker colors. That's fine. And notice I'm not using a whole lot of paint. I don't want this to be too dark. And if it gets too dark, if I'm laying it down, it gets too dark, it's okay. I can go over it with a white. I can go over with a brush and kind of get a little bit of white on there, some of that titanium white, and I can go over these trees. And what it does is it kind of looks like gives the effect that there's kind of a mist that's kind of covering that area, the background. So there's my trees. I don't know if you can see it very well. And all I'm doing is I'm just getting some paint on there and I'm just tapping it around. See, this is why I love these chip brushes, because they just kind of make kind of a beautiful mess of my trees there. So looks like I've got my trees. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse off my brush here, my chip brush, squeeze some of the water out of there, and I'm gonna do something that I normally don't do, but I'm going to go ahead and clean off some of my palette. Because I'm gonna be using a lot of different colors. And if you don't have, so this palette is a palette that comes with my art kit. It's a good palette, but one of the things I like using when I'm painting, especially a bigger picture, is I love using the palette paper. They have this, it's a book that comes with this kind of wax paper that is great for to use as a palette. And I just tear the sheet out of there and I lay it down. It's nice and big. It's like an 8x12 or an 8x11 sheet of paper. And I will go through, it gives me a lot of room because I like to mix and match, and I really like to experiment as I paint. So I have not painted this scene before, so this is the first time, so I'm experimenting right now. Okay, so I've got my background trees. And again, if I feel like, oh shoot, these are too bright, I can just dab a little bit of white, get some white, and I can kind of go over my trees a little bit with this white. And what it does is it softens up the details, and it gives the impression, first of all, like there's a mist that's kind of off in the distance. So I'm just gonna kind of rub that white around. And it softens up the details, it gives the idea that there's a mist, and also it creates more distance between the viewer and the painting, so it makes it look, it gives your painting some good depth. And notice how I didn't do any tree trunks or anything like that. We're not gonna worry about that right now. Okay, and I am gonna have a stream kind of going through here, so I'm not worried about this too much right now. I am going to start kind of mapping that out a little bit. In fact, let's go ahead and we're going to kind of map that out right now, where I'm going to get the black, permanent black, some titanium white, and we're going to kind of map this out. So I'm going to have this, let me get some water on that brush. Okay. We're gonna have it kind of go like this. Maybe something out here, like this. And it's gonna go over like here, maybe around like that. Go up, and then maybe. Something like that. Okay, so this is going to be kind of our stream, and this is just a rough estimate. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of build up these areas here around that, and then I'm going to add some trees and some foliage up here as well as I build that up. So I'm going to take my 1/2-inch brush again, and I'm going to start creating some areas here. Let's get some ochre on that. Okay, we're gonna kind of go through, and I'm tapping because what I'm trying to do is, I want to give a more realistic effect of ground cover and foliage. So I'm just going to kind of tap some colors in here. So I added a little bit of crimson in there. So I'm just going to kind of fill this area here, fill it back there, maybe get a little bit back because back in here it's pretty dark. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to blend this in a little bit here. Again, I'm just adding some color to just kind of figure out where things are going to be. This may or may not be the right way to do it. This is how I am going to do it. Actually, let's add a little bit more of that yellow ochre. A little bit of burnt sienna in there. Okay. All right, one of the things I want to do is I'm going to darken this area up here a little bit. So I'm going to take some burnt sienna, a little bit of scarlet. Let's get a little bit of that black, just a tiny bit. Oop, that's a little too dark. So we're gonna lighten that up just a little bit. And I want to darken up this area here a little bit. In fact, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use my chip brush for that. So, because, let's take some of that water off there. Because this is that area where very little sunlight is getting. Okay, it's kind of a darker area here. Not a whole lot of sunlight is getting in this area here. So we kind of want to darken that up just a titch. See, I've got too much water on there. Okay, so I've got some color here, and then this area right here, my stream, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of color that out right here. I like to, when I'm doing streams like this, I like to just get some black and some titanium white, and I'm just gonna kind of do kind of a base color here for my stream. We're gonna add some stuff later on here, some rocks and things like that, but right now we're just kind of mapping out where this goes and adding a little bit of base color. And two reasons why I like to do this right now is, number one, it gives it time to dry so I can then add color and details to it. Two, it really shows me where, it gives me an idea of how things are going to look as I get going here. What I need to do, where I need to add things, what needs to happen. I'm gonna kind of close this area off here with some foliage. Actually, we're gonna bring this stream over a little bit and have it kind of go wide on us here. And you'll see what I mean a little bit here. We're gonna have it kind of go around like this. And then it's gonna be kind of open up wide on us here. I'm just going back and forth, and I like to go side to side on these, because what happens then is you're just going with the flow of the river. Okay, so now as I'm looking, I'm starting to think now, okay, where do I want to put some details? Where do I want to put my trees? What do I want to do with this area, that area? And again, I just sometimes I just kind of wing it and see where these things are, as if, you know, they are different objects or different things that were kind of hidden that I didn't even know about as I started my painting. So right now I'm adding a little bit of yellow ochre on here because I want to lighten up some of my areas here. I don't want it to be too dark. I gotta darken that a little bit here. Okay. All right. Now, let's see about. I'm gonna take some crimson, some yellow ochre, kind of soften that up, and I'm going to put some tree leaves over here. Maybe add a little bit of that burnt sienna in this. And I'm not pushing down hard. If you push real hard on here, what's gonna happen is you're gonna lose the effect of tree leaves. It's gonna be too thick. Maybe there's some trees over here. Maybe there's some tree leaves over here. Some over here too. Some right here. Okay, I'm going to add some from here. Okay. I'm going to add some yellow ochre in there. Dry my brush off a little bit. A lot of water in that, and I do not want that to be very wet. I'm going to add some medium yellow as well. So there are some trees here in the background that we want to spot pretty well. Okay. All right. So I'm adding some medium yellow, some yellow ochre. This is the medium yellows to kind of lighten up. In fact, I'm going to want to get some more yellow, medium yellow in this. I want it to be lighter than that. It's a little bit better. We'll do some yellow ochre. We're going to add a little bit of that in there. Okay. We're going to do a little bit there as well. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm starting to get some leaves going here. Now I want to create I got to have my tree trunks. So this is always something that always scares me a little bit because I want to make sure my trunk is not too wide. I want to make sure it's not too narrow. I want to make sure my branches look good. But I'm going to use this brush right now. This is a number 6 brush, and if you look, what I did was I'm thinning out. I want to create something where I can create some good lines. So I'm going to add some water to this and get some good Mars Black. Now I'm going to turn this, and we're going to go through and we're going to bring this down. And we're creating some of our tree trunks. So we're going to go through and just gently Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Get some water on that. Water on there. And we're going to do more than what we have over here right now, but this is just a start. I'm just trying to make sure I know where make sure I know with this brush that I can get that effect that I'm looking for. And I'm not pushing down hard at all. I'm basically letting the weight of my brush do the work. Okay. I definitely want more than that, so I'm gonna do the key to this is patience. Because if you lose patience, what's going to happen is you're going to end up pushing too hard, and you're going to end up having trunks that don't look real, or they're too big. And you do not want that. I've had that happen where I've had to go back and I've pushed too hard at the end or up here and made my trunk really big up here and really skinny at the bottom. And as we know, trees don't do that. So again, take your time. We all know the trees are much thicker towards the base of the trunk than they are up at the top. But again, one thing I love about acrylics is they are very forgiving. So if you mess up real bad, you can go ahead and you can paint over it, fix it. And you'll notice I'm adding some trees that don't have any leaves yet. And that's okay, we're gonna put some leaves there. I'm just trying to figure out where all these trees are hidden. I didn't realize there's one right here. Another one. We're gonna bring some these trunks down here. Okay. All right, so now that I got that in place, I'm going to add some leaves to these trees. Okay. And the way I'm going to do that right now is I'm going to show you a different kind of technique I can go through. And if I got some trees in the distance and I just want to be, real careful on what I do, I can just kind of put a little yellow ochre up there, or medium yellow, and I can tap around. And put some leaves on these trees. I'm going to add some yellow ochre on there as well. I like how that brush is. There we go. Now down in this area here, I'm gonna add a lot more kind of foliage and give it a little bit more detail on here, because I want things to be, we're kind of creating kind of a somewhat of a realistic picture. So what I'm doing here is I'm just adding colors. So I've got some crimson and I've got some burnt sienna, and I'm just adding colors to it. Adding more colors. All right. Okay, now let's start to kind of work on, and I think I'm gonna add some more trees and some more things in here, but I'm gonna kind of move to a little bit of a different area here, and I'm gonna start lightening up this area here along the shoreline. What I'm doing here is I'm just tapping along. Tapping along, just adding this yellow ochre in here. Yeah, I will definitely be adding some more tree trunks as we get closer towards the viewer. Okay, let's do a little bit of And again, I'm tapping here instead of painting because I want to give some texture. I want to give the impression that there's leaves or foliage that's kind of on the ground here. Okay, now I get a little bit more yellow ochre here. And I'm going to add a little bit of white. I'm going to mix it over here. Just lighten up my yellow ochre a little bit here. We want to get it a little bit brighter. We might have to wait a little bit for that to dry. There we go. We're going to kind of just lighten up some areas here. I'm going to do a little bit of black here because what I'm doing is I'm going to, that foliage doesn't come right up to our water line. We got some rocks and we're going to put some rocks and things in here. But I might be just doing that a touch too early. But right now, what I'm trying to do is just give it a little bit more defined shoreline. But I think what I'm going to do first is I've got to fix my water a little bit. But before I do that, I want to add some more trees. So I'm going to get my brush again here and add some more trees. So we're gonna do some trunks here, some tree trunks there. So we're gonna go through and let's do kind of a going right there. And we're going to do kind of a big one right here. This one is going to be so big that I think it's going to pop out over. Now you notice I messed up right there. Got this little weird thing that kind of comes out, but that's okay because I'm going to cover it with some leaves. Let's make our trunk a little bit bigger up top. This is going to be one of our bigger trees, and then maybe another tree that kind of comes. Get some water on this. Not too much, but we do want to get it a little bit wet. We're going to thicken up this tree right here. I feel like he should be something a little bit more prominent here. And we're going to kind of work on defining the trunks a little bit here. And you know what? I feel like there's a tree. Maybe it's coming off in the distance, and I think we need some tree trunks over here. Okay. All right. So let's add some leaves. Get my chip brush again. I'm going to dry it off. Get some yellow ochre, some crimson. And let's go to town here. I'm pressing a little bit harder here because I want to get more coverage. I'm gonna add some burnt sienna in this. Get some darker leaves. There we go. Okay. All right. Now we're going to kind of work on our water and our foliage here. So I'm going to get my 1/2-inch brush again. Start working on my water a little bit here. I'm going to get some white. And I'm just going to kind of go back and forth a little bit here. add a little bit more black. So I'm just playing with it to kind of see where I want to go with it, and where I'm gonna add some reflections in there. But right now I'm just kind of playing with that water, see where I want to go with it. What I want to do. Do I want to add rocks? Do I want to add a little tiny waterfall? I'm not sure yet. A lot of these paintings, I kind of get them started, and it may seem weird, but I kind of let them figure out where they're going, what they're doing. There, we're gonna do some darkness over there because don't have much light shining through. Okay. Now, I'm definitely not done with my water, but I'm getting to the point now where I can start working on the shoreline a little bit and adding some rocks and things like that make our shoreline. I'm just kind of tapping along here. Get some black, more black on that. Let's say that there's a rock here that comes out. And we're gonna, now these rocks that I'm doing, they may not show up too well right now, but they'll show up a little bit better as I add more detail to them. Now, this area here, I'm just kind of darkening it up a little bit, just give it more of an effect of a darker forest. Okay, now I'm going to start to define some of these rocks and stuff a little bit here. This is sometimes a trial and error, usually kind of figuring out where the light source is coming from and just doing that. Okay. That rock comes out there like that. Some rocks in here too, because we don't want we want it to look more natural, our shoreline. All right, I'm getting a better idea. I'm gonna add a little bit of my Mars black, or permanent black, not Mars black. Okay, now I'm gonna start lightening up some of my water areas a little bit here. Get a little bit of white, just a tiny bit of black. And let's see here. What I'm doing here is I'm just lightening up my water a little bit here, because we don't want it black. And by doing this, what it's going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to create some reflections of the foliage in the water. Some beautiful reflections. And it's also going to make the rocks look a little bit more distinct, so we're just doing that. I'm going to use my 1/2-inch brush here as I get down this wider area here. There we go. Looking more like water. Okay. Now, I'm going to define a few more rocks again. Get our rocks a little bit more defined. Maybe put some bigger ones in here. Like this rock comes all the way out. We'll put some rocks in the water here. I'm gonna fix this trunk here a little bit. And we're gonna bring up some of the foliage. We're gonna work on this area a little bit here too as well. Okay. Now we're gonna do a little bit of. We're gonna create some reflections. So I'm gonna get some yellow, my medium yellow, my yellow ochre. Okay. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go through. Get a little bit more yellow ochre there. Maybe even some crimson. We're gonna doing is we're just kind of creating some reflections in the water here. Get some water on my brush. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lighten up some areas where that water is kind of maybe moving a little bit faster and it's hitting some, going around the rocks a little bit. So we're going to okay. All right, now I'm gonna work on some of my foliage right over here. Gonna bring some texture to it. And then we get some of my burnt sienna, maybe some of my black. We're going to kind of create kind of some dark colors in here to kind of do some like bushes, sticks and bushes that we might see. On the ground here. And kind of give a little bit of separation from give a little bit more detail into our foliage here in the grass and all that kind of good stuff that's covering our shoreline here on our creek. I'm going to do some shadows. Okay. All right, we're about done. This is a fall scene. It's a fun painting to do. It doesn't take that long, as you can see, and it's a fun painting to do that looks good in a frame and something that you can hang on your wall or put on your desk and be proud of. I hope you enjoyed it, and hope you enjoy painting, and you can go check out some of my other tutorials.